It's the 26th of August 2024. This is a brand new edition of Newsfirst's Primetime News Bulletin, coming to you live and direct from our Newsfirst studios here in Colombo. Bringing you the news tonight for the Newsfirst team, I am Jaimal Ratnayaka.
And I'm Naveksha Gunasekaran, and here are your headlines for tonight.
Anura Kumara presents manifesto for presidential poll.
ජාතික ජන බලවේගයේ මුළු දේශපාලන න්‍යාය පත්‍රයේම තියෙන්නේ අනේකාට එරෙහි දේශපාලනයක් වෙනුවට සමගියේ දේශපාලනයක්.
Renegotiating IMF program is a futile task as IMF no longer has authority on the matter, says President.
IMF කතා කරලා වැඩන දැන් IMF ට බලතල නැහැ අනික් විශ්ව වෙනුවෙන් කතා කරන්නේ. That power is over now.
Sajid to bring monthly allowance to end poverty.
මාස 24ක් ඇතුළත තමන්ව දුප්පත් කමින් මිදෙන දැවැන්ත ජාතික වැඩසටහන ක්‍රියාත්මක කරනවා කියන එක මම මේ අවස්ථාවේ ඔබ සියලු දෙනාටම ප්‍රකාශ කරනවා.
Catholic Bishops' Conference urges voters to use their votes judiciously to change the political culture that protects corrupt individuals. 3 Chinese warships and 1 Indian warship in Colombo.
Sri Lanka decides.
On to tonight's top story. The National People's Power announced plans to engage in further discussions with the International Monetary Fund to develop a robust and effective program aimed at alleviating poverty and supporting the most vulnerable populations.
Now, this announcement was made during the unveiling of their presidential election manifesto.
In their policy statement, the National People's Power also proposed to establish a parliamentary system by abolishing the current executive presidential system.
The National People's Power launched its presidential election manifesto titled "A Rich Country, a Beautiful Life" this morning. The party's presidential candidate, Anura Kumara Dissanayake, presented the original copies of the manifesto to religious leaders, including the Mahasangha and other distinguished guests at the event. The manifesto is built around 4 fundamental pillars: a perfect life, a comfortable country, a dignified life, a safe country, a modern life, a rich country, a proud life, a steadfast country. Key policy points outlined in the manifesto include abolition of the executive presidency, transitioning to a parliamentary system, new parliamentary election system, limiting presidential quarters to 1 official residence, ending the pensions, special allowances and benefits for retired presidents and their spouses, appointing 25 ministers to scientifically allocated ministries, abolishing the posts of state ministers and only appointing deputy ministers, establishing expert advisory boards for each ministry, empowering the electorate to recall corrupt representatives via electoral accountability, abolishing the 5-year pension and duty-free vehicle licenses for MPs, holding postponed provincial and local government elections within a year, establishing an anti-discrimination commission with statutory powers, investigate political killings, enforce disappearances, abductions and deliver justice, expanding efforts of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission to address violence caused by racial and religious extremism, legal action on Easter Sunday attack by prosecuting politicians and officials as per the Presidential Commission's recommendations, holding politicians and officials accountable under criminal law, promptly investigating long unsolved political killings and kidnappings, including those of journalists and sports personalities.
අපි යලි අපේ රටේ පුරවැසියන්ට නීතිය පිළිබඳ විශ්වාසය ගොඩනැගිය යුතු නැද්ද?
Shouldn't we build confidence in the rule of law among our citizens? If we allow the belief that those who plan attacks can ascend to the presidential chair, what will happen? If we create a society where someone can become president through large-scale corruption, where will it end? We must free our institutions from the political interference that has engulfed them. Our country needs a genuine Inspector General of Police, not just a figurehead. The entire agenda of the National People's Power is centered on unity and inclusive politics rather than divisive politics.
සමගියේ දේශපාලනයක් තමයි ජාතික ජන බලවේගය දේශපාලනය.
The National People's Power has outlined several key economic policies in their policy statement, revisiting the IMF's income-based expenditure management proposals, proposing new measures for efficient tax administration and government expenditure management, preparing an alternative debt sustainability analysis, conducting a detailed credit audit of government loans, encouraging foreign investment in public-private and public joint ventures by prioritizing legislation to attract foreign investment in strategically important sectors, evaluating state enterprises by assessing each state enterprise based on its strategic importance, economic growth potential, ability to stimulate production, impact on financial stability, and relevance to national security.
වංචාවෙන් දූෂණයෙන් නාස්තියෙන් තොර පාලනයක් අවශ්‍යයි. අනාගතයේ සිදුවන දේ වැළැක්වීම සඳහා පමණක් නොවේ. අතීතයේ සිදු වූවටද දඬුවම් ලබා
There is an urgent need for governance free from fraud, corruption and waste. Our primary task is not only to prevent future occurrences but also to address and rectify past wrongdoings. We must advance our country's production capabilities. Currently, we rely on India for medicines, clothing and food. We need to transform our nation into a new production economy. The idea that fairness means if you have 2 cars, you should buy 1 car is flawed. True fairness addresses the disparity in wealth distribution. The top 10% of our population enjoys 38.1% of the national wealth, while the bottom 10% only receive 1.1%. This means those at the bottom struggle to afford basic necessities like food, medicine, proper housing and education for their children. They live without the basic comforts and joys of life. Is there any point in discussing economic development when such a significant portion of our society is left behind?
ලබා දෙන්න බෑ. ඔවුන්ට මූණක හිනාවක් නෑ. මේම ස්තරයක් ඉන්න සමාජයේ. අපි රටේ සංවර්ධනයක් ආර්ථික සංවර්ධනයක් ගැන කතා කරලා පළක් තියෙනවද?
The National People's Power has prioritized education in its manifesto. Key initiatives include creating a non-government educational institutions regulatory unit under the Ministry of Education to oversee and regulate courses offered by private educational institutions, dividing schooling into 4 segments: primary grades 1 to 5, junior secondary grades 6 to 9, senior secondary lower grades 10 to 11 and senior secondary upper grades 12 to 13. Setting up a government school system for primary education within 3 kilometers of students' homes or their parents' workplaces. Establishing junior secondary and senior secondary schools that cover 2 or 3 primary schools. Introducing a national exam in grade 9. Allowing students to choose between a general stream or a vocational stream based on their exam results and school-based assessment reports.
කිලෝමීටර 3ක් වඩා උපරිම දුරක් කිසිම දරුවෙකුට යන්න නොවන පරිදි
We are committed to improving every school so that no child has to travel more than 3 kilometers to receive an education. Our goal is to implement numerous reforms in the education sector. We must support our citizens step by step until these reforms are fully realized. For families who struggle to afford education for their children or medicine for adults, we propose providing a monthly allowance. Additionally, we aim to remove VAT on essential areas such as food, education and health. We can also reduce electricity bills and oil prices in a very short time. The government of the National People's Power is dedicated to ensuring fairness and taking care of every citizen.
බලා ගන්න ආණ්ඩුව.
The social welfare program of the National People's Power includes several key initiatives. Creation of a National Social Security Fund, providing a minimum monthly subsidy of 10,000 rupees to low-income families, identifying all eligible beneficiaries through a digital platform within 1 year using new criteria, offering a monthly subsidy of 5,000 rupees to senior citizens in need, providing 10,000 rupees per month to low-income individuals with disabilities, ensuring at least 10,000 rupees per month for patients in need, securing the right of youth to suitable employment through government initiatives, updating the existing competitive examination system for government job recruitment, improving the selection procedures for government jobs, offering financial facilities to youth through proposed development banks aimed at fostering entrepreneurship.
එළියේ රජය නියාමනය කරමින් සමහර ඒවා තාක්ෂණය ලබා දෙමින් ප්‍රාග්ධනය උදව් කරමින්
By regulating external government activities, we are providing technology, capital assistance and market access to support Sri Lankan industrialists and entrepreneurs. Our government is implementing targeted programs for every sector. For example, in the tourism industry, we aim to attract 4 million tourists within a few years. In the IT sector, currently valued at $1.2 billion, we have plans to expand it to $5 billion. We are setting goals to expand marine industries to around $5 billion. The government will play a crucial role in achieving these targets. If an investor faces difficulties, the government will step in to provide support, ensuring that the target is met. We are committed to supporting and intervening when necessary to help them succeed.
මේ ආර්ථිකය හදන්න අපි සහාය දෙන්න අපි මැදිහත් වෙන්න
The National People's Power announced plans to reconsider the agreements regarding the Trincomalee oil tank complex. They aim to develop a business model that benefits the national economy for the 24 tanks owned by CPC and the 61 tanks owned by the joint venture. Their policies also include making Sri Lanka the country with the lowest electricity bills in the region. They also plan on updating electricity, LP gas and petroleum price formulas in a fair and transparent manner. Additionally, they plan to convert the existing and proposed 1,500 megawatt thermal power plants into LNG plants. Achieving zero-emission targets by 2050 is another key policy of the National People's Power.
We require good governance and a strong foreign policy. In today's world, the need for a stable and robust foreign policy is more critical than ever. A National People's Power government will ensure that Sri Lanka's land, sea and air are not used in ways that threaten our regional security. This is the cornerstone of our foreign policy. We are committed to inviting foreign direct investment based on clear and consistent principles. We communicate the same message to both local and foreign investors. Bring your investments. We can confidently say this publicly and directly to their faces. We don't want anything from them.
The theme song of the National People's Power was also released at the event.
Commenting on suggestions being made to renegotiate with the International Monetary Fund, independent presidential candidate Ranil Wickremesinghe has said that since the IMF no longer has authority on the matter, such discussions would not be effective.
Independent presidential candidate Ranil Wickremesinghe presided over an event organised under the theme, quote-unquote, Lawyers for the Economic Stability. Justice Minister Ali Sabri, President's Council and Education Minister Dr. Susil Premajantha were among the speakers at the event.
Despite being a small cabinet, we were able to accomplish all these tasks efficiently in 2 years instead of dragging it for 4 to 5 years. It was not just one party. Everyone worked together with a shared commitment for the country. The parliamentary team played a crucial role in this effort. As a result, we have now reached a certain level of stability. So far, 18 countries have entered into agreements with the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, the Asian Development Bank and other institutions. Our initial negotiations were with the IMF, where we reached an agreement. Next, we needed to negotiate with China and other countries. China was waiting to see if we would offer any special terms to other countries, and similarly, other countries were watching to see our approach towards China. After these complex negotiations, we finally reached a consensus. Concurrently, the authority for everyone to act on behalf of the International Monetary Fund has expired. Next year, we must generate an income of 5 trillion rupees and work accordingly. This agreement can be compromised when political promises are made to provide services for free or to reduce taxes. If this happens, alternative funding sources must be found. For example, if VAT is reduced, income tax may need to be increased. The target of raising 5 trillion rupees remains fixed, but the methods to achieve this target can be adjusted. However, we must remain committed to this goal. What happens if we fail to meet the target? Some suggest that we can renegotiate with the IMF. However, since the IMF no longer has authority in this matter, such discussions would not be effective. Instead, we would have to negotiate separately with each of these 18 countries and 3 organizations, which is not an easy task. When the IMF returns in October, they will inquire if the targets were met. The IMF provides assistance subject to a review every 6 months. We have completed the second review with the IMF, but the funds are expected to be disbursed in February. Before this, the review must be completed and approval obtained for the funds. If we decide to revise the current agreement, all aid will be halted until a new agreement is reached. This would mean further delays and challenges starting in February as we navigate the complexities and renegotiation. If we are not truthful, the country will falter. Right now, economic stability is paramount. No other party is as capable as our economic team. Some of those in the opposition were brought into politics by me, so I am well aware of their capabilities. Therefore, the people must carefully consider whether they want to entrust their future to these individuals and make an informed decision.
අමාරු වුණත් තීන්දුව తీරන ගත හැකි නායකයෙක් සිටිය යුතුයි කියන තැන හින්දා තමයි අපි කල්පනා කරේ පක්ෂ පාට ભેද පැත්තකට දාලා
A leader must be able to make difficult decisions. That is why we believe in putting aside party differences and prioritizing the country above all else. The country comes first, then the party, and then the individual. If the party is prioritized over the country, we cannot engage in meaningful politics. This election was a very tight race, and the outcome will determine whether Sri Lanka moves forward or reverts to the challenges of 2022. I came across a Tamil social media post that said,
ரணிலுக்கு ஓட்டு போட்டால் செப்டம்பரில் ரணில் ஜனாதிபதி, வேற யாருக்கும் மாறி போட்டால் அடுத்த டிசம்பரில் ரணில் தான் ஜனாதிபதி.
For those who understand Tamil, this means if Ranil Wickremesinghe is elected this September, he will be the president. But if you vote for someone else, it means that Ranil Wickremesinghe will be the president again in December next year.
ජනාධිපති රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ මැතිතුමාම කියන එක තමයි එකෙන් කියලා තියෙන්නේ.
මේ උපදෙස් අරගෙන රටක් පාලනය කරන්න පුළුවන් වෙලාවක් නෙවෙයි.
This is not the time to govern a country by merely following instructions. True leadership requires a combination of experience, maturity and knowledge to make sound decisions. This is what the President has demonstrated and how we have been guided. Leadership is not about avoiding challenges, it is about accepting and overcoming them. Ranil Wickremesinghe has taken on this responsibility. Friends, I say very clearly that he is the one who will lead our country for the next 5 years.
Presidential candidate of the Samagi Janapalavegya, Sajith Premadasa, said every family affected by poverty will be given a monthly allowance of 20,000 rupees. Speaking in Seruvilla today, he said the allowance will be given to eradicate poverty within 24 months.
A rally organised for the victory of presidential candidate of the Samagi Janapalavegya, Sajith Premadasa, was held in Seruvilla, Trincomalee this morning. Addressing the rally, Sajith Premadasa revealed his plans to eradicate poverty.
වර්තමාන රජයේ රට බංකොලොත් කරපු නායකින්ගේ අමනෝඥ තකතිරු ප්‍රතිපත්ති නිසා අපේ රටේ දසලක්ෂ ගණනින් දුප්පතුන් බවට පත් වෙලා. ඔබ දන්නවා රණසිංහ ප්‍රේමදාස මැතිතුමා ජනසවිය දුප්පත්කම තුරන් කිරීමේ වැඩසටහන.
Tens of thousands of people in our country have become poor due to the short-sighted policies of the current government and the leaders who led the country towards bankruptcy. Ranasinghe Premadasa commenced the Janasavya Poverty Alleviation Program in the Trincomalee district. Therefore, I am making a clear statement in this district itself. We will take the positives of Janasavya, Samurdhi, Asvasuma and Gamidiriya, address the shortcomings in these programs and implement a new poverty alleviation program in our country for the people who are suffering due to poverty, without an income and who are unable to afford 3 meals or to provide for their children. We will grant a monthly provision of 20,000 rupees for every family affected by poverty to rid them of poverty within 24 months through a massive national program. The concessions will be provided centered around the woman of the household. We will make this program to eradicate poverty a practical reality within 24 months or less under a government led by us. This is a bankrupt nation. Bankrupt nations don't have unlimited resources, but we will put an end to theft, fraud and corruption in this country, bring those responsible for stealing state resources to book and return the stolen resources to our country, using them to eradicate poverty. We will use those resources to build this country.
අපේ රටට නැවතත් වරක් ලබාගෙන අපි ඒත් පාවිච්චි කරනවා මේ රටේ දුප්පත්කම දුරන් කරන්නට. ඒ සම්පත් ටිකත් පාවිච්චි කරනවා මේ රට ගොඩනගන්න.
Several factions within the Samagi Jana Sandhanaya, led by the SJB, also expressed their views.
තිරුකුරාමල දිස්ත්‍රික් උපාය මාර්ගික වශයෙන් මේ කලාපයේම වැදගත්ම ප්‍රදේශයක් ඒක සම්පූර්ණ උප්පරිම ප්‍රයෝජනය ගන්නට නම්
The Trincomalee district is strategically an important area in this region. There are opportunities to build large industrial parks in order to make maximum use of this. Many agreements have been signed with the Indian government, but nothing has been implemented yet. Our future president's program includes various projects to implement them. We will definitely commence an era of development in the Trincomalee district.
අනිවාර්යෙන්ම එවැනි සංවර්ධිත යුගයක් මේ තිරුකුණාමල දිස්ත්‍රික්කයේ පටන් ගන්නවා කියන එක නැවත වාරයක් මම මතක් කර සිටිනවා.
මෙතුමා
He is a leader who can govern this country void of racism and extremism, develop this country and strengthen the economy. Go from door to door, tell those who do not know and those following different paths to vote for our leader to ensure the victory of the future President Sajith Premadasa.
ජනාධිපති සජිත් ප්‍රේමදාස මහතා දිනවන්න ඔබ සියලු දෙනාම කටයුතු කරන මේ රටේ ආවේගවලට මිනිස්සු ඡන්ද දෙන්නේ.
Sometimes people vote impulsively. People voted for Mahinda Rajapaksa impulsively. Did you see what happened? They destroyed the country. People voted impulsively for Chandrika and Gotabaya. You know what happened. Don't take a chance this election by voting impulsively. After voting impulsively for various individuals, it is you who will suffer. If someone incapable comes to power, who can only brag, what will happen? There will be no food by December, no fuel or gas.
පොලිං වලින් ගලවගත්තු නායකයාට තව අවුරුදු 5ක් දෙමුලු. හරි ෂෝක්. මේක කියන්නේ කවුද? පොලිං හදපු යවුන් ටික.
They are asking for 5 more years for the leader who can put an end to queues in this country. Who is saying this? It is the ones who created the queues. Is there a bigger joke than people who created queues asking the people to give the country for 5 more years to the one who put an end to the queues? They are now trying to secure power by clinging on to Ranil and praising Ranil. Queues were eliminated by burdening the people with taxes, taking away the people's purchasing power and selling state resources. It wasn't done by building the country's economy.
දුන්නේ නැහැ කියන එක මේ රටේ බත් කන හැම කෙනෙක්ම දන්නවා කියන කාරණේ බොහොම පැහැදිලි.
Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna presidential candidate Namal Rajapaksa says the country's economy can be boosted by strengthening the rural economy.
A rally organised for the victory of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna presidential candidate was held in Ridhigama, Kurunegala this afternoon.
අපි පක්ෂයක් විදියට මේ රටේ වැඩ කරපු දේශපාලන බලවේගයක්. අපි මේ රටේ ද්‍රෝහී වෙන රට බෙදෙන ජනතාව අපහසුතාවයට පත් වෙන.
As a party, we are a political force that has worked for this country. We haven't done anything to betray the country, divide the country or inconvenience the people. We always believed that the country's economy can only be uplifted by strengthening the rural economy. We always believed that the country's economy can only be strengthened in the long run by strengthening the farmers, the fisher folk and the worker and protecting the businessman who lives in the village. I believe that the economy should be restructured to ensure the people living in the village gets money under government led by us. We will implement a program to strengthen the Samurdhi movement under government that I form. We will bring investors to the village. We need to create the necessary background for the investors we will bring to the village. We need to create the infrastructure. We need to create the necessary environment to generate jobs. Under government that we are forming, we will not only create the background to bring investments to industries in each constituency of this country, we will also implement a program to provide an answer to unemployment as well as the transformation of the public service that is intertwined with technology that the young generation of this country is looking forward to.
රාජ්‍ය සේවයේ පරිවර්තනයේ වගේම රැකියා උත්පාදනය තුළ ඉරකියාවටත් පිළිතුරක් ලබා දීමේ වැඩපිළිවෙල අපි ක්‍රියාත්මක කරනවා කියන එක මතක් කරනවා.
Independent presidential candidate Field Marshal Sarath Fonseca elaborated on the policies he has devised to develop the country during a public meeting held in Nuwara Eliya today.
මගේ වට්ටෝරුවක් නෑ මැටි වෙන පොරොන්දු මේ වාහනේ ඉඳලා බිමට ගෑවෙන්න අර ගෝඨාභය දුන්නා වගේ. මගේ කියන්නේ සරල න්‍යාය පත්‍රයක්.
I don't have a long list of election promises like Gotabaya had. My agenda is simple. The primary objective is to eradicate corruption and waste pervasive amongst politicians and state officials. It can be done. All it takes is 1 year. Corruption can be eradicated by presenting bills to Parliament or forming committees. I pledge to end the war in 3 years and manage to do so in less time. I am certain that corruption can be ended in a year. We experienced corruption in the army too, but I put an end to it in 6 months. When I took over the army, strength was 116,000. I was given 82 billion to spend. I increased the number of troops to 200,000 and managed the army with the allocated budget by combating corruption and waste. It can be done. We will ensure national security. We will restore the pride of Crime Forces officials and honor police officers. We will definitely provide the citizens with security. The drug menace can be stopped too. We do not have any connections with those who strike deals or engage in fraudulent activities.
අපට අවුරුද්දක් විතර යනකොට මොකද අපි මේ ඩීල් කාර්යොත් එක්ක ජාවාරම් කාර්යොත් එක්ක අපේ කිසිම ගනුදෙනුවක් නැති.
People's Struggle Alliance presidential candidate Nuwan Bopage says only his alliance has the program to provide relief to the people apart from the IMF program.
A public rally organised by the People's Struggle Alliance was held in Maharagama today.
මෙතන මේ බස් වල යන බහුතරයක් ගෙදර ගිහිල්ලා හවසටත් මොකක් හරි රැකියාවක් කරන්න බලාගෙන යන්නේ. ඕක තමයි යථාර්ථය. ඉතින් අපි මේ
Majority of the people going in buses now will go home and do other jobs during the evenings. That is the reality. What is the reason for this reality? What is the reason for the rise in the price of goods? Amidst the crisis, the IMF asked to increase the VAT from 8% to 18%. The prices of plain tea and rice packets also increased. Is the IMF not the main link of this vicious circle? The youth is burdened due to unemployment. During the past 2 years, 1 million people lost their jobs and hundreds of schools were closed. Amidst this, the IMF is saying free education is a burden to the country and asking to privatize it. Sri Lanka Telecom, which was gaining profits, was sold, and the Sri Lanka Insurance Corporation is being sold. These organizations brought in billions of revenue to the country. The IMF wants them to be sold. At this time, is it possible to find answers to the crisis faced by the people outside of the IMF's conditions and without the intervention of the IMF? It can't be done. Only the People's Struggle Alliance has presented a program to leave the IMF and provide solutions to the people's issues.
මේ ජනතාවගේ ප්‍රශ්නවලට උත්තර ගේන IMF එකෙන් ඉවත් වෙන එකම වැඩපිළිවෙල ඉදිරිපත් කළා තියෙන්නේ ජනාරගල සන්ධානයේ පමණයි.
Strengthening the people, fighting for the truth, leading a nation, forging the future. Newsfirst, with the people.
දව පින්තාරු වැඩමුළුව හා ප්‍රදර්ශනය NV2 සහතිකලාබී වෘත්තීය පින්තාරු ශිල්පියෙක් ශිල්පිනියක් වීමට ඔබත් අදම එක්වන්න. ඉස්තරහා ව්‍යාපදිංචි වීමට අමතන්න 0777 6040. ජැට් පින්තාරු අභිමාන දේශීය දව පින්තාරු කරන්නේ උන්නතිය උදෙසා. For a rich country, රට අනුරට ජාතික ජන බලවේගය. For a rich country, රට අනුරට ජාතික ජන බලවේගය.
A trio of Chinese People's Liberation Army Navy warships arrived in Colombo earlier today.
3 Chinese People's Liberation Army Navy warships, Hefei, Fuzishan and Kilianshan, arrived at the port of Colombo on a formal visit. The visiting ships were welcomed by the Sri Lanka Navy in compliance with naval traditions. The Hefei is a 144.50 meter long destroyer crewed by 267 personnel under the command of Captain Shen Junfeng. The Fuzishan is a 210 meter long landing platform dock manned by 872 crew members. Similarly, the Kilianshan is a 210 meter long landing platform dock with 334 crew members. Crew members of the ships will explore some of the tourist attractions of the country during their stay in Colombo. Concluding the formal visit, the trio of Chinese People's Liberation Army Navy warships will depart the island on the 29th August after a passage exercise with the Sri Lanka Navy ship off the coast of Colombo.
The Indian naval ship Mumbai arrived at the port of Colombo on a formal visit this morning. The visiting ship was welcomed by the Sri Lanka Navy in compliance with naval traditions.
Indian Navy's frontline warship INS Mumbai is the third of the Delhi-class destroyers indigenously built and commissioned into the Indian Navy on the 22nd January 2001. INS Mumbai will be bringing essential spares for the Dornier Maritime Patrol aircraft operated by the Sri Lanka Air Force. INS Mumbai is a 163-meter-long destroyer which is manned by a crew of 410. The ship is commanded by Captain Sandeep Kumar. He called on the Commander, Western Naval Area Rear Admiral Shintaga Kumar Singh at the Western Naval Command headquarters today. The visit is categorized as an operational turnaround wherein the ship will also replenish fuel and provisions. On her departure on the 29th August, INS Mumbai is set to engage in a passage exercise with the Sri Lanka Navy ship off the coast of Colombo.
Commissioner General of Excise elaborated facts on the findings on excise revenue mentioned in a report tabled in Parliament recently by the Parliamentary Committee on Ways and Means. He was speaking at a media briefing held earlier today.
On the 21st of August, Chairman of the Parliamentary Committee on Ways and Means, Partali Champika Ranawaka, tabling a committee report, pointed out that an excise revenue of 7.9 billion rupees is overdue.
The amount overdue from WM Mendis is 3.447 billion rupees. Royal Ceylon Distilleries is 560 million rupees. Viamba Distilleries is 281 million rupees. Globe Vendors is 1.148 billion rupees. Macallan Breweries is 619 million rupees. Kalutara Cooperative Distilleries is 17 million rupees.
The Commissioner General of Excise provided an explanation regarding the overdue excise revenue during a media briefing today.
If we take the excise department, 6.9 billion is overdue as of December 31st. It includes 2.6 billion rupees taxes that are overdue by more than 15 years. Cases have been filed and writ orders have been obtained against 2 institutions. A case was filed against another company as well. 2 institutions have been closed. In addition, there are outstanding taxes of more than 5 years amounting to 3.4 billion rupees. In 2023, there was a deficit of 1040 million rupees. So far, 609 million of it has been paid. Additionally, we have collected 145 million rupees in fines. In total, we have collected 755 million rupees of the 1040 million rupees in 2023. Another 431 million is overdue and we hope to collect that amount before the 30th of November.
පාර්ලිමේන්තුව අගෝස්තු මාසේ 12 වෙනිදා කරපු ප්‍රකාශයක තියෙනවා තුමාගෙන් ඇහුවම ඇයි මේ රියල් බිලියන 7.8 එකතු කරගන්නේ නැත්තේ කියලා ඔබතුමා කිව්වයි කියලා ඒ පාර්ලිමේන්තුව ඉදිරියේදී මේ මුදල් අමාත්‍යාංශය ඒ සම්බන්ධයෙන් කටයුතු කරේ නැහැ කියලා බරපතල චෝදනාවක්.
ප්‍රධාන ගණන් දීමේ නිලධාරීතුමා කියලා කියන්නේ අපේ මුදල් අමාත්‍යාංශයේ ලේකම්තුමා.
පාර්ලිමේන්තුවෙන් පැහැදිලිව කියලා දෙන්නේ ඔබතුමා කියනවා කියලා මුදල් අමාත්‍ය ලේකම්වරයාගෙන් අවසරය ගන්න ඕනේ කියලා.
The Chief Accounting Officer is the Secretary to the Ministry of Finance. That is the response. So I need to seek necessary advice from him.
ආයතන වැසීමක් ගැන නෙවෙයි ක්‍රම කාරක සභාව කියන්නේ తాවකාලිකව බලපත්‍රය අත්හිටුවීමක් පමණයි. එතකොට ඒ බදු ගෙවීමේ යථා තත්ත්වයට කරාම බලපත්‍රය දෙනවා. ඉතින් ඔබතුමා මේ අසත්‍යයක් නේ ප්‍රකාශ කරේ ආයතන වහන්න කිව්වා කියලා.
නෑ ඔබතුමාගේ ප්‍රකාශය මම පිළිගන්නේ නැහැ මේ.
No, I don't accept your statement that my statement was untrue. I don't make false statements. The end result of both closure and suspension is closure. Suspending the license means stopping production.
ඒතකොට ඒක ඒ කාර්යයට ඉතින් නවත්තනවා කියන එක.
නෑ ඉතින් බදු ගෙවන්න නැත්නම් දැන් අපි වාහනේ පාරක ගිහිල්ලා මේ දඩකොලයක් දුන්නොත් 1000 ගානක කෙලින්ම දෙන්නේ උසාවි දාලා. උසාවි දාලා
ඉතින් අපි දැන් ඒ ආයතන දැන්
The companies are settling the arrears of 2023 and will finish paying it by the 30th of November. We have collected 755 million from the companies that were asked to suspend the license off.
ආයතන වලින් තමයි එකතු කරලා තියෙන්නේ.
එතකොට අර කාරක සභාපතිතුමා කියන්නේ ඔබතුමාගේ නිර්දේශ ක්‍රියාත්මක කරේ නැහැ කියලා.
නෑ ওই නිර්දේශ
No, he's saying I didn't implement recommendations to suspend the licenses. I have written to the Finance Ministry. The Secretary will seek advice from the Finance Minister on whether or not to suspend. I will implement it based on that response.
The Catholic Bishops' Conference in Sri Lanka pointed out the necessity of changing the political culture that drives individuals to seek power for selfish interests at the expense of the people's welfare and the country's development. The Catholic Bishops' Conference in Sri Lanka issued a statement ahead of the upcoming presidential election, emphasizing the need for a fair and democratic process.
The Catholic Bishops' Conference in Sri Lanka highlighted the importance of electing a leader who will safeguard the independence of 3 pillars of democracy: the legislature, the executive and the judiciary. They expressed concerns over past attempts to interfere with the judiciary's freedom and stressed the need for voters to use their votes judiciously to change the political culture that protects corrupt individuals. The statement also called for justice of various crimes, including the Easter Sunday bombings in 2019, and emphasized the need for proper investigations into the country's assets robbery, politically motivated abductions, disappearances and killings. The Catholic Bishops' Conference in Sri Lanka urged that those responsible be held accountable according to the law. The Catholic Bishops' Conference in Sri Lanka pointed out the necessity of changing the political culture that drives individuals to seek power for selfish interests at the expense of people's welfare and the country's development. The Catholic Bishops' Conference in Sri Lanka urged presidential candidates to refrain from deceiving voters with false promises and allurements. They stressed that those who violate election laws cannot be trusted to govern with integrity and justice.
For a rich country, රට අනුරට ජාතික ජන බලවේගය රටට බත සපයන රජරට තමුත්තේකම කුඩා වෙල්ලන් කඩවල ග්‍රාමී ජනතාව පිරිසිදු පානීය ජලය නොමැතිව බොහෝසී දුක් විඳි කාලය නිමා කරමින් ගම්මැද්දෙන් පානීය ජල පෙරණයක් ලබා දුන් වගයි ගම්මැද්ද රට නගන ජන පෞර.
A recently released IMF report states that the new central government taxes are required to meet fiscal goals.
Meeting the commitments made under the current IMF program will require new central government taxes, revealed a recent report by the International Monetary Fund. The report notes that under the EFF arrangement, the authority is committed to revamping the property tax system and introducing a wealth transfer tax to support fiscal consolidation. However, in accordance with Sri Lanka's constitution, property-related tax revenue, currently amounting to around 0.2% of the GDP, fully accrues to subnational governments. It added that taxing the imputed rental income from owner-occupied and vacant residential property rather than taxing real property directly would allow raising central government revenue. Imputed rental income is the deemed income that homeowners could earn if they rented out their homes. For tax purposes, such income can be defined as a fixed percentage of a property's market value. The IMF report adds that the lower than expected revenue from nationwide property taxation will require additional tax changes at the central level. The capital gains tax is an important complement to imputed rental income taxation. It should be reformed to replace the exemption of the first home with a value threshold. As previously recommended, the exemption of capital gains from the sale of listed shares should be removed and the VAT treatment of owner-occupied housing should be aligned with international best practice, including by taxing the first sale of residential property.
For a rich country, රට අනුරට ජාතික ජන බලවේගය
රටක් ලෙස අප හමුවේ ඇති සිහින අනාගතයට අප රැගෙන යන බලාපොරොත්තුවයි. සැපවත් නගරවල මෙන්ම දුප්පත් ගම්මානවල පොදු සිහිනය. යහපත් හෙට දවසක්. ඒ සිහිනය ජය ගන්නට එක්ව නැගිටිමු. ගම්මැද්ද රට නගන ජන පෞර.
Welcome back to the news. The Hambantota International Port projects 50% growth by the end of the year. The Newsfirst Finance Report has all the details.
The Newsfirst Finance Report.
The Hambantota International Port has reported a significant increase in volumes, achieving a 40% growth in 2024 to date. The port's commercial and marketing division anticipates this growth to reach 50% by the end of the year. Significant growth has been observed in the bulk or break bulk, gas, marine services and container segments. The port is increasingly recognized for its strategic location and efficient services, making it a preferred destination for transshipment and logistical services.
The Newsfirst Finance Report.
And that's a wrap of Primetime News for tonight.
Thank you for watching.
Good night.